I am Marty Nemko. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing this old bald guy. And who better to riff on aging than an old bald guy? So that's what I'm going to do here, whether you're watching this on a YouTube video or my podcast on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, any case. So, it's important to start positive, so I'm going to start with the silver lining about aging. If you've been around the earth a long time, you have, even if you're not the brightest bulb in the package, you've acquired some knowledge, some wisdom, some experience, so you're better able to solve some problems, better able to have certainly perspective. I mean, a lot of people as they get older, their minds aren't as good, so they lose that, but at least they've got some wisdom maybe and experience to help them solve some problems. So that's good. Certainly, personally, I'm grateful that I think I'm still at my best. Maybe better than ever. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe I've lost my ability to discern that, what they call Dunning-Kruger's phenomenon. But I think I'm as good as I've ever been. But it is certainly true that many of my clients are feeling, and friends are feeling, that they're not as sharp as they used to be, who are my friends who are older than I am or my age. I want to turn from that to the reality. What's really hard is looking at yourself now, whether it be in the mirror, where we can still deceive ourselves a bit, or looking at photos. If we look at photos of ourselves now and in the past, it's hard to not see how much we've changed. And that's hard. I mean, it's all well and good to say, oh, age gracefully, acceptance and all that, but it ain't so easy, because it reminds us of our place on the conveyor belt. It's moving in one direction, and we all have the same endpoint, or if we reach the endpoint, sometimes people fall off the conveyor belt before they reach the 90-year-old endpoint. What can I say about that? I hate it. I try to follow, actually, the way I deal with the awareness of my aging is that I am reminded of Isaac Asimov's statement. He had published 450 books, and he was asked, what would you do if you had 6 months to live? And everybody thought, well, he's going to say I'd vacation, I'd spend more time with my wife, I'd see my grandkids. When asked that question, what would you do if you had 6 months to live, he said, type faster. And I would do the same. I love my wife, love my doggie, love my hobbies, but I would keep writing and keep making these YouTube videos for you. It adds meaning to my life. People say, you must love it, it must be fun. It's not. It feels like it's a responsibility, and I want to be a responsible person. I don't hate doing this, but I'd rather play in the garden or play with my dog or take a hike or go eat something. But I like to think that the meaning of life is, and this is sounding sanctimonious, is in contribution. And the more minutes I spend using my best skills, which is thinking on my feet, writing or speaking, helping as many people as I can, which I like to think is at least more than one or two when I'm doing these YouTube videos for you or podcasts, that I'm living, as the Buddhists would say, right livelihood. It's the way I want to live. Of course, other people they live to pursue happiness, or they live for work-life balance. I must admit that my life is utterly out of balance. I spend a lot of time where I have good quality time with my wife and my doggie, but I spend 70 plus hours a week working, and that's the way I want to live. Okay, moving on. That said, given that is important, many people who are work-centric, for whose identity, whose value, or their definition of the life well led is work, being productive, obviously there is ageism in society. Some of it is legitimately earned, because if in fact your cognition is not as good as it used to be, and your motivation isn't as good, or maybe your physical health isn't as good, it's not ageism as in prejudice, it's ageism as in making a rational judgment that, a 20-something who's more eager to work, whose knowledge is fresher, more technological, is more likely, at least, to be competent. Of course, there are many exceptions, but certainly ageism is an issue, and that makes it really hard for older people who are work-centric to stay relevant, and we care. And I will speak I here, not just some royal we third. I do care to stay relevant because I know it can't last. I'll be 72 in June, and I haven't heard a lot of 80-year-olds who are, cranking like I'm cranking. So I figure I better do it while I can. And so I do everything I can to stay relevant. I keep writing, clients, YouTubes, breed roses, do piano concerts for my neighbors, for anybody, for theaters and shows. So the question is what do you want to do to stay relevant if you are older? Or maybe you have an older parent, maybe you're in your 40s or something, or younger, or 17, and you got parents or grandparents who are work-centric, but maybe feeling scared or unhappy that they're afraid they're not going to be relevant, whether it's because of ageism or because of their own mental or physical decline. Let's talk about that. At my age now, I'm fortunate, I'm still healthy, but, I'm aware, I get constant reminders that people of my age and a little older are declining physically. You hear about, it's like from the old Woody Allen movie there was around a table where everybody's talking, oi, my diabetes, oi, my hypertension, oi, my this, oi, my that. It's, indeed, many of my friends and colleagues are getting sick and, and dying. In some cases died. A few cases died. And the mental decline. There's this joke, but it's not really a joke. Oh, I've got CRS. Can't remember shit. Well, that ain't fun, really. And even if it's not Alzheimer's, it's normal age-related memory decline. I had a client. My client was supposed to show up at 2 o'clock today. She's older. And she had forgotten that she made another appointment, even though I told her it was going to be her birthday and I was going to bake something for her. We sit in the backyard, we'd socially distanced, and I was going to bake something for her birthday. She completely forgot that she'd even made the appointment, even though there was a clear reminder that I was baking for her. And she said she didn't write it in her phone, so she must have forgotten to even write it in her phone. So yeah, the mental decline, we can smile about it. A lot of people, depending upon who you are and your family of upbringing and culture, you may be trained to smile even though your heart is aching. There was some old song that said that. Smile though your heart is breaking, something like that. There's people really may laugh about it, but it can't feel very good to be in decline, mental decline, and feeling you're not able to do what you used to do. I have a client who's developed arthritis, bad arthritis. And it happened quite recently, until about 3 months ago, she was bounding up, she's older, but she was bounding up and down stairs, she was taking vigorous hikes, the whole deal. Then suddenly the arthritis hit, and over a 3-month period, it got worse and worse and worse. So now she doesn't even feel like walking much anymore, and she has trouble getting up and down stairs and getting into the car. Not easy. And there's, no motivational speaker or psychologist or anybody has an easy answer. They can say acceptance, but you do what you can. You go and see the physical therapist or the doctor, and control the pain as, with Aleve or whatever, within reason, or whatever the doc says. But it feels like crap. Fortunately, I don't have that yet. And I'm so grateful. That's the one thing I do feel every time I wake up in the morning, and I never have pain. I'm grateful that I've made it through another day being just like I was when I was 30. And I don't take it for granted, and that's something I advise you to do. If you are feeling pretty good, it probably is not going to get much better. It may get worse. We're all, like I said, we're on that conveyor belt. A sense of gratitude for every moment. Even there are some people who are sick who have better hours, worse hours, better days, worse days. My client says, oh, my arthritis is acting up today. Oh, I'm having a surprisingly good day today. Grab onto that and make the most of those sands that are passing ever quicker through the hourglass. Right? Now I want to talk about death and dying. And I think I'm going to keep this one pretty short, this whole podcast, YouTube video. I'm not scared of death. I used to be very scared of death, but somehow this one-liner was what really worked to help me. I wasn't aware of my existence before I was born. And that didn't hurt. It wasn't nothing bad. and I'm not going to be any more aware after I die. So death itself is nothing other than the awareness of death reminds me to make the most of every minute. And as I said, some people it's playing golf, seeing the grandkids, traveling, standing one with nature, or one with the antiquity on the steps of the Acropolis. For me, it's work, doing good, hopefully good work. So ask yourself, what do you want to do? Knowing that the clock is ticking, that's a silver lining in your awareness of death. What do you want to do? But what I don't have an answer for is the fear of dying. Some people are lucky, they're really quite fine, and then they die in their sleep. But a hell of a lot of people don't do that. They either have a horrific stroke or heart attack, and they're vegetables, and then they die, or they have cancer, and they try, some of them try extraordinarily with chemotherapy and radiation and surgery and feel better for a while, but they're tortured. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. It's dying I'm scared of, and I don't have anything smart to say to you about that other than distraction. What's worked best for me, I've done a lot of reading about dying from the Buddhist tradition, from the psychologist tradition, from the rational emotive therapists tradition. Ain't no answer. You know what the answer is, at least for me, and everybody's different. Mine is distract myself. I stay busy. The more I talk about dying, the more it's top of mind. The memory neurons associated with that are strengthened, and I'm more likely to worry about it. So I say, damn it, stop thinking about it. As soon as it enters consciousness, I get on with whatever it is I'm doing, whether it is talking to you or writing or seeing a client or playing with my dog or planting the rose bush I plan to plant between at the end of this and my next client. I've got an hour. I'm planning to plant this lovely rose called Firefighter. I find that, and it's ironic that I'm a counselor, and that I'm recommending that often, not always, but for some people with some issues, the best thing you can do is distract yourself. And there's nothing I can do about dying. We do the best you can in terms of diet and exercise and not smoking and keeping your stress under some control. But after that, as my good doctor who recently retired, Dr. John Jones, said, something's going to get you and you don't know whether you lucked out or not. Just let the river run was his big phrase. Let the river run. And maybe that's not a bad way to end for today. So let me summarize a little bit. There is a silver lining in aging in that you have had more experience, more knowledge. You may therefore have more perspective, some better problem solving, although that's weighed against the fact that you may be not quite as cognitively good, or you may be. I like to think that I'm as good as ever, but it can't last. Then there is the reality of facing a mirror, looking in a mirror, or looking at old photographs and accepting your aging, but in balance. You have to accept it, but maybe being aware of those sands dropping in the hourglass, making you make the most of the time however you choose to do that. Despite the ageism that exists. What else? And the last thing again is I have no answers around the fear of dying, but maybe it is a help to you to realize that if you weren't aware of death before you were born, weren't aware of life before you were born, you're not going to be any more aware of it afterwards. There's no difficulty. And I have left out, I'm an atheist, but there are people who are religious, and pardon the pun, God bless you if you believe in an afterlife, that live well and but you'll go to heaven. Or if you're a Buddhist, you'll believe in reincarnation and you'll come back, hopefully not as per Franz Kafka as a cockroach, but something that would be your wish. In any event, my wish is certainly for you to live as richly as you can. I like to end every one of these by saying, with a saying that I think is more appropriate now than when I started to say it, ending each radio show 30 years ago. It's not my own quote. It's from some guy. I can't remember his name. We find comfort among those who agree with us, growth among those who don't.